Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Got my beach vibe going here today, and always in the mood to play a little ukulele with you. So today we're going to start with a warm-up exercise for day 4 using a concept that we used in an earlier day. So we're going to start warming up today with the major scale. Now the major scale, again, we'll go through here is open C string, 2nd fret with the middle finger on the C string, open E string, 1st fret on the E string with the index, ring finger on the 3rd fret of the E string, then open A string, 2nd fret A string with the middle, and ring finger with the A string on the 3rd fret. Sorry, that was a little confusing there. The major scale here will be our warm-up today, so we'll start just nice and slow. And as I do this, I'm going to say the note name. Now, this is something I want you guys to do as well when you're practicing this. It's going to help you start getting acclimated with the actual note names when you're pressing down the strings, which is going to help you learn the other notes on the neck. So here we go, warming up, day 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. C, D, E, F, G, A, E, C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Now again, as you do that, if you want to play around with matching the pitch with your voice, that's a good way to start singing and playing. But I think the major scale is a great warm-up. And now that you have a couple of different options for warming up, maybe write down which warm-up you want to do for each week. Do you want to do the major scale this week for the whole week? Do you want to do 1, 2, 3, 4 for a few days? Or mix up that pattern? Or you can do what I do is you kind of do more of an extensive warm-up before you start practicing to really build up your confidence and get those fingers working. It always makes for a better practice section. So take some time, play around with the major scale a little bit, and get a nice thorough warm-up before you start practicing. And now we're going to jump into our main concept for today, which is muting. Muting is something that can happen with your strumming hand or your fretting hand. So I'm going to show you how to do both, and then we'll do a play along to incorporate that into a chord progression so that it kind of is something applicable to you. So the most simplified way to mute is with your strumming hand, whether you're righty or lefty. Really easy way to mute is just take your hand and cover the strings. For example, in the previous lesson here, we did a strumming pattern called down, up, mute. Well, that's an example of muting with your strumming hand. So if I were just to hold a C chord here and go down, up, mute, you could apply that to a lot of different songs. For instance, Somewhere Over the Rainbow is a perfect example of a song that you could use down, up, mute for. To do that, I strum down with my index, up with my index, and then I just place my hand here on the bass of the instrument, or the sound hole rather. So it's down, up, mute, down, up, mute. So let's just try that, holding a C chord. We'll just go about 4 or 5 times. And this is something, again, you want to try to make sure you're doing the same time. You don't want to hit the ukulele super hard the first time and then just tap it. Try to build consistency, make it almost robotic as you do it, and then you can build feel from there. So here we go, just using a C chord, nice and slow. 2, 3, 4. Down, up, mute. Down, up, mute. Down, up, mute. Down, up, mute. A few more times. Now, that could get a little bit more challenging as you get into some further advanced strumming patterns. But the main concept for muting with your right hand is to just tap the body of the uke, and that will mute the strings. Now, if you want to get a little bit further in depth with this, we learn how to mute with our fretting hand. Now, in order to do that, it's kind of a touch thing here that you need to achieve. So you actually lay your fingers across the strings, but you don't press them down. So all of this stuff about actually pressing the strings down comes into play here. If you press down at all, you're going to get some notes ringing through there. So in order to really correctly mute with your fretting hand, you want to make sure that you're just touching the strings. So you might have to just practice that. Take your hand off and then lay it back on the strings and practice every time as you strum. Now you're going to get that dead muted sound. Now incorporating that into a chord sequence would sound something like this. Now let's say, again, I'm playing a C chord here with my fretting hand. Now I'm going to strum that down, but then when I go up, I want it to be muted. When I do that, down, now when I come up, I lay my finger down here on the strings, and I release the pressure of the chord, but I'm still touching the string. That's a key element to this. You can't have the chord finger still pressing down while you mute because you still get that single note. You have to release the pressure so that everything is muted. So I play C down. When I go up, I drop my finger onto the string and release pressure. And I didn't catch it correctly there, but down, up with the mute. So in this situation, I'm using my middle finger to mute the strings. It might be easier for you to use your index finger, but for me, it's nice and easy just to kind of grab my middle finger down for the C chord. Now that will change as I show you here in a couple of these other chords, but let's just try this really quick with a C chord. So on down strum, we'll play through, and when we go up, it will be muted. So we'll just do this really slow so you can kind of get some repetitions. Here we go. 2, 3, 4. Down, mute. Down, mute. Down, mute. Down, mute. So that's how you would mute with your fretting hand for a C chord. Now let's say you're playing a G chord, which we just talked about in the last lesson. How would you mute that chord? Well, it doesn't look like you have many options here. You have your pinky available, and then you've got your thumb here that's available. So when I play a G chord, I strum that through. Now when I want to mute it, all I do is I take my G chord and I release the pressure so that now these strings are deadened, but I still have the open G string on top that's ringing. So in order to mute that, I take my thumb and I grab from over the top and I mute the G string. So now I have that G chord muted. So this is another exercise you can incorporate in. Just working with your fretting hand is going down with the G, and when you come up, grab over with your thumb, release pressure, and mute. So let's just try that with a G chord 4 times, just as a little quick exercise here to work on getting the habit of muting with your fretting hand. I will say that muting with your fretting hand allows you to do a lot more rhythmically as you go on in your strumming. It's just a lot quicker once you kind of get in the habit of it. So don't be afraid of it just because it's uncomfortable right now. Take it on slowly, and try it a little bit every day. Incorporate it into your practice routine through this entire week. By the end of the week, I guarantee you're going to feel a little bit more confident and comfortable with it. So let's just take this G chord. Every time we go down, it'll be open, and every time we go up, it'll be muted. So here we go. 2, 3, 4. Down, mute. release, pressure, release. One more, down, mute. So take some time with that. I will also leave some exercises with other chords for you to work on with muting. But the rule of thumb here is use the fingers that you have available for muting and keep the finger down from the chord that you're using, but don't press the strings down. Don't compress them into the fretboard. Just touch them so that they stay muted. That's the essence of muting. Now we're going to do a couple of play-alongs using each of those techniques so that you can have a little time to work on muting with your strumming hand and a little muting with your fretting hand. So let's do a little play-along here. So the progression we will use for this first mute exercise, which will be muting with our strumming hand, the progression will be C, G, take that concept from last week, working on our G chord here, A minor, and F. So just 4 chords, we'll strum them each 2 times, and when I say 1 time, that means down, up, mute. That equals 1 time. So here we go. We'll do 2 times on each chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. Down, up, mute. Down, up, mute. Switch to G. Going to A minor. I'm using my middle finger for A minor. And F. Back to the C. G. A minor. F. So you might recognize that chord pattern there as, I think it's the chord progression from I'm Yours by Jason Mraz. So if you've played that one before, or if you're looking to play it, you now know the chord progression. So let's bump up the tempo a few clicks here. And as always, if you like working with a metronome, this is a good time to start incorporating the metronome into your warm-up routine and some of these exercises as you go. Or if you just want to stay here in the video and play along with me, I'll keep the tempo for us, and that's just fine as well. So here we go with a little bit more tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4. G, A minor. Are you smiling while you're doing this? F. Enjoy the process. G, A minor. 1 time for good measure. Here we go. C, make it a good one. G, A minor, and F, and on C. All right, so to keep things simple here, we're going to use the exact same chord progression, but now we're going to mute with our fretting hand. So think about that chord progression here. When we have our C chord, we're going to use probably our middle finger to mute. With the G chord, we'll wrap our thumb to mute. For the A minor chord, when you mute that, what I like to do is I'll just take my middle finger and just lay it across the string. So I play it, then lay it. That sounded pretty funny. And then for the F chord, same concept. Take that chord and play it, and then take your fingers and lay them across. So here we go, 2 times. We'll go nice and slow. Really focus on making sure everything gets muted. If it's not, identify those things in your practice. That's something about practicing that I also want to mention is you need to be the moderator. If you hear something that's happening that's not right, make a note of it. Mental note or write it down. Hey, I'm having a little problem muting A minor. That's what I need to hyper focus on now in my practice to work on. So just a little side note there for you. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Down, up, mute. Down, up, mute. G. A minor. F, time. C, G, A minor, F, and C. So if you need to work on that, pause, go back, maybe try to do that 5 times in a row until it really feels comfortable to you. It'll take a little bit of time. Muting with your fretting hand, I don't want you to abandon it because it's tough in the beginning. It's worth working on. It's worth incorporating it into your rhythm. I promise you it's going to be good for you. So let's bump up the tempo here and do the exact same chord progression. So if you need a little bit more speed, here we go. 2, 3, 4. Down, up, mute. Down, up, mute. A minor. F. Back to C. G. A minor. F. One more time. C. G, A minor, F, and on C. So as I was doing that, sometimes you kind of drift off into thought as you're practicing. Now, it's something I also want to mention here is as you're doing that, try to focus. And that's what these little short increments of practice should be for you, are elements of focus and attention to one thing. So if you want to just work on muting with your fretting hand, spend a bunch of time on it in short increments. You don't have to spend an hour working on muting, but do it for 5 minutes. Take a break. Come back to it in a couple hours when you're kind of cleared your head. That's how I would like you guys to approach practice with this, and I think that's going to help you. All right, so today I thought we would talk about one of the comments that I saw in day 1 from Roe and Von Johnston Reed. And they say, "Thank you for these tutorials. Whenever I start thinking, quote, I'm never going to get good at this, I watch you and you always calm me down." Well, Roe and Von, I appreciate that, and I'm glad it calms you down. But I want to talk a little bit about that because that's something I've experienced in sports. I've experienced it in learning instruments. And it's something that I'm sure everyone has experienced at some point when you start feeling that little lack of confidence or that little seed of doubt creeping in. Something that I like to do just to kind of defeat that is I kind of just try to find a focal point and think of a positive thing, whether that's something good that happened to you this week, or maybe it's something that just brings you a lot of happiness and joy in your life. Maybe it's your uke, maybe it's your little cat Dexter, something to channel a little positive reaction to that negative thing that happens. That's why I also mention smiling. Just that action of turning your frown upside down. I know that's a cliche, but just that little movement there, honestly, when you're playing, will help you have a little bit more confidence and help you feel a little bit better as you're going. There are always going to be challenges. There's always going to be a new challenge that you come across when you're learning this instrument. And there'll be days that you go, yeah, I got it. It feels great. Take that day and remember it. Dock that and say, hey, there was a really good day of practice I had. Make sure you mention that to yourself. It's okay to reiterate those things, even though it might sound crazy if you're talking to yourself saying, hey, that was a good practice session. But by doing that, keeping positive, you're going to just kind of slowly build that confidence. And that's what I also want to mention is this series, Play Ukulele Every Day, playing every day is going to slowly build that confidence. So the more you stick with this, the better you're going to feel every time you sit down and practice. The more you warm up, the more confidence you're going to have. So I hope that tackles that whole topic of confidence and doubt. That's what helped me. Tell me about some things that you do in the comments that maybe have helped you as you've struggled with maybe moving to a muting progression or a chord progression you've struggled with. Let me hear from you. I'd love to know more about this whole topic of confidence and doubt as you play. Thanks for watching day 4, guys. I'm so glad you showed up again. You are putting time into yourself, you're getting better at the uke, and you're playing uke every day. Does it get much better than that? Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you get the PDF for this lesson at allforuke.com. It's free. You can print it out, and it's going to give you a lot more exercises than we talk about in these videos to work on throughout the week. So make sure you're subscribed, click that alert button, and as always, leave your comments below. I love hearing from you guys, and I take all of those comments into consideration in creating the upcoming videos. So I'll see you next time for day 5. Hashtag play ukulele every day. Hit me with that on the Instagram and show me that you're playing uke every day.
Waiting a long time for you, Miss Sunny Day.